Okay, today we're going to do a video on replacing the starter on a Honda 4Trax 300. The starter is located down here on the back end of the engine, and it's got a gear mechanism that goes right into the block. Before we get started, we need to remove some covers. First of all, the battery cover on the back tilts up and can be snapped out and set aside. We're going to need to remove one of the battery terminals so that we don't have power going down to the starter when we work on it. I've chosen to remove the negative side. I've got a 12mm open end wrench to get this loose. So move this cable down behind, make sure it's totally isolated from that post. The proper way to remove the seat is to pull up on this lever, lift up on the back of the seat, and it slides right off of the body. Once the seat has been removed, you can remove this air cleaner cover by popping off these 4 top clips and removing the cover. You can see there's a filter in here that should be taken off and cleaned before we put this back together. You're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the filter. Then you need to remove this screw here so that you can take the filter out of the housing. Once that screw is loose, you can loosen this and pull the whole filter out of there and clean that before we put it back into the four-wheeler. Now we can use a 5/16 socket and remove the bolts. Now we'll remove this 12mm bolt that holds down the back of the gas tank. You're going to want to turn this gas valve petcock to the off position. You'll also find that this side plate that's marked with 300 is poked into the gas tank. You want to pull that out so that we can lift the gas tank and easily get it out of there. Next, we're going to remove this hose clamp at the back of the petcock and take this hose off so that the gas tank will come off of the machine. We'll loosen up this hose clamp, slide it back. Now we need to remove this hose. So I'm going to use a screwdriver, a flat blade screwdriver, to pry it at the front of the fitting. And you can see that it's starting to pull loose. And now I should be able to wiggle it off. Now I can go to the gas tank, pull it backwards and up, and it comes right off the machine. Now you can see that there are 2 air intake hoses that come into this filter block, and we're going to take both of those hoses off so that we can get this housing out. One of the hoses runs forward to this fitting that has a large hose clamp on it. We'll need to remove the screw, or at least loosen the screw on this hose clamp. From this angle you can see the Phillips head screw that loosens up that hose clamp so that we can release that hose that goes into the filter box. On the white tubing, there's also a hose clamp that needs to be loosened. Loosen the screw, and once that is loose, this white breather intake should come off easily. We'll take a large flat blade screwdriver, make sure that your hoses are out of the way, and we're going to pry up on this, and it'll pop out. If we shove it backwards, it will come up out of the brace, and then we can pull it forward just like that. The trick to getting this box out of here is to take the front of this black hose, push it down until it clears the throttle body, until it clears all the hoses and comes out. Okay, now that we have a clear view of the starter, you can see that we have an electrical connection that we're going to have to remove here, and then we have bolts that we're going to have to remove back here and on the other side. And I broke this loose, and now it's coming right off. So now we can take that, make sure you don't lose any more nuts. We take that terminal off of there. Next, we use an 8mm wrench to remove the 2 starter bolts. And we remove the final bolt. Now we need to remove the side plate that exposes the starter gears. We remove all 5 of the 8mm bolts. And then pull this cap straight out. You'll see there's a gear mechanism in here that goes from the starter down to the crankshaft. Make sure you keep these gears in place. Now that those gears are out of the way, I'll pry up on the back of the starter while I use a straight screwdriver to pry the starter back and out until the front gear comes out. And there we have the starter free.